welcome back to Rangers News YouTube channel. My name's James Black and I'm joined again by Cameron Lewis and Jordan Carlisle, and we're going to have a wee discussion just about whether there's a changing of the guard in Scottish football now. We've seen over the weekend Rangers booked their place in the quarterfinals of the League Cup with a comprehensive win over Falkirk, while Celtic were knocked out by Ross County, sparking pretty ridiculous scenes at Celtic Park as the most entitled fans in the world kind of lost their mind. But we're in a position now, there's an 11-point gap at the top of the league. Celtic's got a couple of games in hand on us, but you know the momentum very much seems to be in Rangers' favour just now. So we're just going to go right into it, Cammy, first things. Is it a point now where it's a genuine possibility that we're looking at Rangers finally ending this near decade-long wait for silverware?
Well, I mean, now the League Cup's huge. There's no excuses for not going on to win that. I think that Celtic's collapse has been absolutely monumental. And I mean, Rangers fans obviously know what Celtic fans are like in that as well. I don't think there was any that expected that reaction on Sunday either. It was absolutely crazy. But I think they feel it, certainly, and you can tell by that reaction. I think Rangers fans as well, we don't want to get too carried away. It's just far too early. But if we go on and win it this season, I think that there's going to be a major shake-up at Celtic. I think there would be a major shake-up at Celtic anyway. I think it's pertinent to talk about it because it obviously affects us. But that League Cup result is huge because it breaks a chain of dominance that Celtic have had over the course of the last 4 seasons. So they've now, that was 35 games or something like that. They went in the Cup without winning. For us, I would have been confident that we could have gone and lifted the trophy anyway, but the kind of Hampden hoodoo against the likes of Celtic and even Aberdeen, who went out to St Mirren, is no longer an obstacle for us. And I think that if we can go and win that cup, lay down a marker, then at least we'll be on the way to changing the guards, like you say, like to changing of the guards, like you say. I think it's only 5 points in the league and there's a lot way to go, but I think at this point in the season we've earned the right to be excited, but maybe just need to wait a little bit longer before we go too overblown. I think that there's still a lot of football to be played.
Jordan?
Yeah, I'd probably go along with pretty much all of that. It is amazing what's happening with Celtic in the minute, and the contrast is just so stark because Rangers have been so professional, so polished, and everything sort of that they've done, and they're now sort of starting to feel that hit of guys self-isolating or Hollander testing positive and a few disruptions like that. So far, that's not been an issue, and they're playing third-tier opposition in Falkirk at the weekend, but we're able to make a lot of changes for that game and rest people who are key going forward. And just the sort of meltdown and the turmoil that's happening at Celtic is amazing, because I think the Sparta Prague game was always going to be difficult when there was no way that they were looking like it was qualification was going to be very difficult for the round of 32. But losing to that Ross County team at home is unbelievable in the circumstances. And I was saying to Cammy the other day, I covered them in October against Motherwell. Motherwell beat them 4-0. It wasn't even a contest, and then they're going to Celtic Park and keeping a clean sheet first and foremost, and then scoring twice. So yeah, it's only going to get worse as well. I think they're going to Milan on Thursday night, so that's not going to go well either. So the run is spectacularly bad, and they've got a lot of. I think we were talking about this last week. They've got a run of home games, which sort of made me feel that maybe the gap isn't that big. They've actually got some cushy fixtures coming up, but if they've lost to Ross County, then the other games suddenly look a little bit harder than that at home as well. So, it is too early to talk about a change in the guard, but there couldn't be any bigger contrast between the way the two teams are presenting themselves, performing, the position that the managers are in, the stock that other people across the UK and Europe are looking at the two clubs. It couldn't be any different at the minute. And if Rangers can stretch this run, just keep it going into the new year, into February, then it becomes a real reality. But yeah, massive contrast, but not over yet. There's still potential for it to change massively.
See, as well, when you said that they've got that run of home games, I because they've obviously been beaten. I think it's 2 wins and 10 or something like that. I was quite disappointed that a lot more of it hasn't been in the league. You know what I mean? A lot of it's been in the surrounding competitions. So the league's the big one this season, isn't it? So whilst it's good to kind of indulge, I think that's the big main focus, and I don't think they're out of it yet.
One of the big things for me so far was, speaking about the game at the weekend, there was 7 changes to the starting 11, but then you also had guys like Kieran Dixon coming off the bench, Leon King coming off the bench, Glenn Middleton coming on for a rare cameo, and the levels never dropped. The shape didn't really change much. I mean, they all came into the side, and admittedly playing against a third-tier team in Falkirk, but they looked every bit as comfortable on that side as had they been established first-team players.
Yeah, so I think it was really good, and I think there's been so much said about the academy over the last couple of years, and the fact that the club are striving to win trophies to bring back that success makes it very difficult to bring players through. But giving people a run out at the weekend, Glenn Middleton, I just sort of thought that he was done at the club. Basically, I think he made 28 appearances in the 2018-19 season. Literally hasn't played a game since. So that'll be a big confidence booster for him to come back in. Kieran Dixon was a big part of that Colts and under-20s team last season in midfield. Not necessarily a standout all the time, but contributing goals and stuff from midfield. And he's obviously stepped things up a level. He looks confident, stocky, willing to get stuck in and be positive on the ball. And King's a guy who obviously we heard quite a lot about last season, and the fact that he might be the most highly paid player, young player Rangers have ever had, and he was clearly given assurances that there would be some sort of route and some pathway through sooner rather than later, rather than going to England. And he's obviously made that step up, and at 16 it's pretty mental. And no matter what the game, what stage the game's at, if you're making your debut for Rangers at 16, you're doing something right. So yeah, a great chance to give those guys a go. And similarly, though, impressed with Defoe, because when he was sort of struck down with a few injuries and niggles at the start of the season, missing pre-season, it sort of looked to me, I couldn't really see how he was going to play, how he was going to feature at all. And it's sort of written to an extent to his sort of missed out because of him, but he looks so sharp. And every time he speaks, it's so impressive. And for all those guys, he's, more than double the age of Leon King. And he's looking at him being like, you've got over 50 caps for England, you've done this, you've played here, there, and everywhere, and you've scored goals, and you're still going. And he's just the guy. All you need to do is look at him and be like, look and listen, and know that's how to make a success of your career. So having the guys at both ends of the spectrum must be brilliant, and Gerrard's done that really well, I think.
That was good what you said about Defoe there, man. I think that he looks so sharp, he looks so fit, he looks so athletic, and every time he gets a chance to play, you'd be banking on him to score. And the finish again, it kind of shades of that kind of Livy one. But yeah, I think that's him coming into the team playing so well has shades of that thing that everybody's speaking about that's running through the entire team. We're making numerous changes, but there's like a identity and a philosophy about how we're going to play, and it's carrying through every single player. Everybody knows their roles. We've got multiple players in each position, so it's fantastic to see that Rangers are so kind of efficient in that regard. I think as well with the two kids getting on, I think Rangers respected the fixture, put them on the bench. They'd been on the bench in European competition, but Rangers respected the fixture that much that they waited until it was out of sight before they put them on. But it was great to see them. I think Dixon showed a lot of confidence. He had that effort. That was nice, and they're obviously very highly thought of, particularly Leon King, and it's great to see them coming through. I just hope that they get more opportunities as the season goes on, and maybe now that they can operate at that level and fight for a first team place, because ideally that's the situation that you want them to find themselves in. You want them to be playing at a first team level and being competitive in the squad, rather than just getting kind of opportunities, but or we kind of moments to shine in games that we're 4-0 up on. You want them to be influencing what we do, but it's certainly a good start. And it was great to see them. It's always good to see academy players coming through.
Both of them seem to certainly impress Steven Gerrard. We heard from him after the game on Sunday night at Falkirk. We spoke about them and also kind of getting some of these more established first team players refreshed ahead of playing Standard Liège on Thursday.
I thought young Dixie was terrific. I thought he played with energy, he played with personality and character, and he's the type that'll never let me down. He's probably had a similar upbringing to myself, where he knows what it means to represent Rangers in the shirt. So we gave him an opportunity to come and train with us about 5-6 weeks ago, and he's been terrific every single day, and he's earned that opportunity today. Young Leon's a little bit different, okay, so maybe he gets a chance tonight because a couple drop out late. But he was ready as well, training really well, still only very young, just turned 17. So I'll be watching them closely now to see how they react from that taste. And I want them to go and work as hard as they can now to get more opportunities. So I'll be watching them closely to see whether it goes to the head or whether they want to really see this as a start for their career. You judge them in training first and foremost. They're training like first team players, they're not training like young kids who are coming in to make the numbers up. They're affecting training and they're contributing, and they were ready, and they're both great kids, so that's what I want. I see a lot in the academy from afar, I see a lot, and these are two good types that deserve that opportunity today. We're in a good place, confidence is high, belief's high. It's about us trying to maintain the standards that we've set from pre-season, and we're in a good place. It was nice to be able to make 7 changes today and the level never dropped, and managed to give Stephen Davis some time with his family after what happened last week. Cammy Roof as well, a family situation, give him a few days with his family, so a lot of positives today, and it puts us in a good place, and everyone should be fresh and ready to go come Thursday night. It's going to be a big night for us.
Also, so the League Cup, there's still the Europa League. Now that's one of these things, the Rangers are sitting a game short of qualifying, 1 short of qualifying, sorry. It's bound to be a really big boost for Gerrard's players, kind of going away from the domestic scene where, there is a huge amount of pressure on the players regardless of how much Celtic have imploded. But being able to go away and still competing. They're not going away and playing in the league and then, going and playing Benfica and getting played off the park like certain other sides might be experiencing in their European games. So I think that's also something where you go to like Liège on Thursday, another good result there. You win and you're through to the last 32 and you keep building momentum. I think that's something that's going to really kind of help Rangers in the next 4 or 5 weeks for a really crucial run of games moving forward.
I think the Edge game, I think it will be full strength and we'll try and get it over the line on the night. I don't think they're going to be coming. I know they're not getting any COVID issues. They had 6 players out when we played them in Belgium. They've got none this time. I know that they've got an injury at that centre half, the boy that used to play for Inter. He's very highly rated. He won't be playing. But they're going to cut. We beat them 2-0 in Belgium. They really need a win to take. They've got it's a big outside chances of them qualifying from the group, but they need to beat us. So I'm expecting a tough game. I don't think that'll be an absolute walk in the park, but I think if Rangers get that over the line, then what we're talking about with like the likes of Keane Dixon and Leon King, maybe they'll get like an opportunity in Poland to get a taste of European action because they've been on the bench and around the squad there. So I think we'll kind of revert back to our strongest squad for that match with Standard.
Yeah, I think it's good timing the way it falls in terms of coming after the League Cup game. People should obviously be well rested, but yeah, I think it's really important that they get over the line this time. Obviously, they were very close to getting the job done against Benfica. That's obviously a couple of times that they didn't quite get there, but against this, I think it's a very winnable game. It might be tight enough, but I think their domestic record and stuff isn't hugely impressive, and at home you make things easier for yourself if there's a similar level of performances there has been just in any competition in recent weeks. You would hope that would be enough But I think the Poznan away is one of 4 away games in 2 weeks, so it's really important that that doesn't mean anything. Obviously, we're looking to finish in first place if possible in terms of the round of 32 draw, and maybe getting a bit more favourable tie, but that the league again is priority. So you get through, you get your win bonus and the bonus for qualifying, you put that to one side, and you can really focus on away games in the league. I think it's Dundee United after that, and that's a game where not necessarily man for man, it shouldn't be too bad, but it's a potential tricky away game. So yeah, they've been brilliant to get to this point so far, and in a relatively tough group. So it's just about getting over the line now, I think.
Which then brings us to the league itself. Now, obviously, there's a 11-point gap with 2 games in hand. But there have been, I think it's fair to say, a few false dawns in the last 4 or 5 years since getting back to the Premiership. And the club maybe kind of over-egged it a little bit the first season back with the going for 55 stuff. And then arguably the last 2 seasons under Gerrard, we've looked, particularly last season, they looked very strong in the first half of the season before kind of completely collapsing after winter break. But can we now really sit and think that, first of all, there's a squad capable of really going on and kind of kicking on in the second half of the season, because there's much more depth in the overall squad even compared to 12 months ago.
I think we can be quietly confident that we won't experience the same kind of collapse, because as well, we're not going away to on a training camp or anything like that. There's no winter break, so we're just going straight into fixtures. So it's going to be a huge month for us, January. But I mean, you can't really say until we get there. As for the false dawns and that, I think that's why there's a real split in Rangers supporters just now. We're obviously enjoying what's happening across the city because it's been so long since something like that happened. But a lot of people are trying to temper expectations at the same time. And I think that's because, like we said right at the start, there's a long way to go. And we've had like our fingers burnt before, overindulging. So we're trying. It's difficult not to when things are going so well here and it's going so poorly across the city. But I think that let's just take it game by game and see how it goes. I mean, I would love nothing more than to be sitting here come May, having finally won that trophy. But I'm quietly confident we can still compete after Christmas compared to the last 2 seasons.
I just thought of something. I think we've worked together now almost 2 years, and I didn't think I've ever asked this. What age were you the last time we won the title?
It would have been 2000. I would have been...
2011?
I would have been... I would have been...
Take 10 years and ask your current age.
Aye, so I would have been 18 now. 18.
17 for me, yeah, 16.
I remember it. We scored 3 goals in 7 minutes at Kilmarnock. The earliest title I can remember us winning, just as a sidetrack, I remember being a wee boy in the pub in the wee village that I grew up, Carradale, by the way, as we shout out for Carradale. And we won. It was the season that we won the treble. We won our 50th title. So I would have been what then? I would have been
beat them Fairland.
11.
2003, 4.
I can remember throughout my teens
I was working that
Rangers winning, right? But one of the big things is because obviously can't remember the 9 in a row, right? So I was too young for that. But the entire time that I kind of grew up with football, Rangers and Celtic were always head and head, neck and neck. So it was always either Rangers winning, Celtic winning, and then they had 3 in a row, and then we had 3 in a row. And then since then, it's just been all them. But I think that what they didn't realise is that football's like kind of cyclical. And I think that when Rangers came back up, it was inevitable that just with the money, just with everything, that eventually we were going to get in a position where we compete with them. And I think that if Rangers do go on and win it this year, I think that we're going to have, not a dynasty, but we're going to have a few years where we're the team to beat. And Celtic will have to kind of rebuild. And I think that's something that I certainly experienced when I was younger, the to-ing and fro-ing between Rangers and Celtic, but haven't, unfortunately, in recent years.
one of the kind of funny things for me is, I mean, I remember 9 in a row last time around. I think the first I remember maybe either 5 or 6 in a row. One of the first ones I can remember. I mean, I can remember when we blew 10 in a row last time around. But in the following season, when Dick Advocat came in, and things started to change, and we then had the famous Old Firm Shane game on the 2nd of May 99, when Celtic fans were taking headers off the top tier at Celtic Park, and Hugh Dallas got his skull burst with a coin and whatnot. But I think even next season, like if we were to win the title this season, like the pressure that's on them next season's even bigger than it was this year. Because
I think it'll be like a well. You know what I mean?
As desperate as they are to get their 10 in a row this year, if they lose that, whoever's next up, like they have to be the guy that stops Gerrard getting another one. And it's very, very reminiscent, like the turn of the century for me.
Mm-hmm. I think with this one, either if they get it, they're going to have like a big overwhelming thing. It finally puts everything, puts it for them or everybody, this big thing that they've got comes to an end. But if we win it, we've been waiting so long. I think it's just a big well of pressure. I haven't even thought about beyond this season or beyond us winning that first one. I think that'll come if we win it. I think it's just the amount that the amount of pressure that's building behind this season is absolutely monumental.
That was just the last thing I wanted to ask you both, actually. Do you think there's pressure on Rangers to win this title now? Because for me, I don't think there's any pressure on Rangers whatsoever. I think all the pressure's on Celtic, and they're probably a little bit given the advantage that if Rangers were to choke, it would be a momentous choke. But I still think that it's very much, if Celtic lose this, it's a massive disaster for them. It's a groundbreaking, it's management changes, it's ripping the squad up, it's a whole complete rebuild for them. But kind of in general terms for us, I don't necessarily think it's as drastic a thing.
I would sort of say that even it's just a smaller case of basically what's then happened over the last 20 years and what you're talking about cycles and all that, the way things can change though, I think in terms of the pressure shift. So at the minute, yeah, like Neil Lennon has taken the full brunt of this whole thing essentially. And it's massive, the pressure on them, whereas Rangers are floating through everything, still unbeaten, and that's fine. But if that changes, if something goes awry, then the pressure's right back on Rangers, because then it's Gerrard's been here for 3 years and he keeps bottling it and his players keep bottling it, and then you think, oh, well, actually, is it time to rip up this squad because now, you know, it's not bad luck anymore, this happens and that happens. So I think at the minute, yeah, all Rangers need to do is focus on just winning games. There's no real necessary pressure with that because that's just what they have to do normally. But that could change very much. But I think I haven't really said anything about the League Cup here, and that could be something that now that Celtic are, as Cammy said, I don't think by any stretch is beyond Rangers to beat Celtic in that competition, whether that be in the final or before that. But the fact that they're out of the way now does give, and Aberdeen, gives Rangers a bit of a clear run at it. And if they can win that trophy, then so it's a bit of an era end for Celtic's 35 wins in a row. That's already ended. Rangers win the trophy, take advantage of that. Then the players have all already won something with months left in the season. So you take a little bit of pressure off yourself, but everyone knows that the league is still the end goal. But the players have proven it to themselves that they can win stuff, and there'd be no reason why they not make that a double.
Do you gain a little bit less from winning the League Cup though by not being, like, as great as it would be and as big a springboard as it could be for momentum and what have you? Do you gain as much from it by not beating Celtic, if that makes sense?
I don't think it matters as much at this point. Just the fact, just winning something, and I think when Celtic talk about insist that it's 9 in a row and all this, and that last season was a legitimate title, and all of these sort of vagaries and stuff around that. Those are things that Rangers fans will always point to. But I think Celtic are so concerned with themselves at the minute that no one's going to be turning around in the media or anywhere saying, Rangers have only won this trophy because Celtic slipped up. But Celtic are it's a completely different situation at the minute. Rangers can only beat who's in front of them. And in terms of the League Cup, Celtic only played one game in the competition and went out. So that's nothing to do with Rangers, I don't think, at the minute. The league is where they're going head to head, and that's a direct battle. So I think it's different. Yeah, the satisfaction levels might be slightly bigger beating Celtic in the final in a showcase event, but just winning it is what they need to do to get moving.
I think everything that you said is how we said it last season when with regards to the League Cup and the build up to it, which is that trophy's huge, it gets the monkey off our back. It means that we've finally got the silverware. We've proven that we can do it. And I actually think that when we lost that last season, it was detrimental to us. I mean, I know we went on to beat Celtic at Parkhead, but had we won that, I think that it would have been a little bit of a shift then. I don't think that I think we would have been more prepared to go out and win it. Well, obviously the season ended, so it's by the by. But if we'd won that, I think it would have proved to this team that they're capable of winning something. So I think that it doesn't matter who we're playing, just go and win that trophy. I don't think there can be any excuses for us not winning that. And I think that whilst because Celtic and Aberdeen aren't in it, some people might try and play it down, securing the trophy. I think that it's more damaging to this group of players' psyche not to win it than what it would be to win it. I think just go and get it, Rangers. It's there for us. I think we go away to St Mirren next, and then we've got 2 ties at Hampden. I think Hibs is probably written in his stars to be them in the final after the Scottish Cup final in 2016. So let's see what happens. It's going to be a big game if we get there. It's a big if. We still need to get through 2 tough games.
I'm not so sure in the Hibs thing, but there's other reasons for that. I'm not convinced they're getting past Alloa.
Oh, Hearts, didn't you, Alloa?
If the beat both,
I made the point on the preview that was on my Ben for not the Old Firm that kind of Hearts had gone there kind of quite poor away from home. Alloa's got a great record at home, especially in cup games. And the same with Hibs. Hibs haven't been great away from home this season. Alloa again's got a really good record at home. I'm far from convinced that Hibs get through that. I think that's your big shock of the quarterfinals potential.
I do think with Hibs, I think I said this before, the fact that they can play with 2 strikers and play with a bit of freedom are the team really outside of the Old Firm games that can really can attempt to give Rangers a game going head to head with the team. So I think that would be a really, Celtic might not be in the competition, but if that would be the final, that would be a really good game. As well as a massive spectacle and still something where Rangers would prove themselves by winning it. But yeah, I can't see Alloa doing it again, but then
take Alloa in the final, man.
Yeah.
That'll do me.
Then there'd be serious pressure if there's no trophy.
That would do me nicely. I wouldn't complain at that. A really good chance to actually get their hands on the trophy. Just to kind of wrap it up, so kind of hectic run of games up until the Old Firm game on the 2nd of January. Is that season defining that game?
Could be. I mean, listen, see if we don't slip up before then, you know what I mean? And at this stage, it is enough. There's a hectic schedule coming up. And obviously, I mean, in defence, if something was to happen, I mean, see what happened when Conor Goldson went down the other night, man. I think there was like a collective heart drop across Scotland. Rangers fans nearly panicking when they seen the big man go down because he has been exceptional. He's so important. And it's same with James Tavernier. They're. I mean, you could maybe include Ryan Kent in it as well, but they're probably the only 2 players who are irreplaceable. If we lost a player like either one of them, that would be a big dent. And then obviously Hilander's out, Gedden's out, so it's no guarantee. But if we were to match points or to better points in Celtic going into that match, they're going to have to come and beat us, or at the very least get a draw, so we can really put them to the sword by beating them in that match. If it stays as is, or we're a little bit further ahead, we could really set them up. I think that could be season defining, that match.
I think there's every chance that there'll be a full different setup with Celtic by the time that comes as well, because obviously they're getting behind them at the minute. But when they inevitably lose to AC on Thursday night, it's going to be increasingly tough to support him. So that could be a different Celtic setup, a different managerial team, different formation, a change in the team that have been poor than.
You think they're going to change manager?
I don't. I'm surprised. I'm surprised, to be fair. After I think almost the fans made it easier for them to keep Lennon, because you cannot condone that sort of reaction to anything by then going along with what they want in terms of sacking him. But I think if they lose in Milan and lose and drop points in another home game, which it will be in the league before then yeah, I think they could change it, because it's going to get to a point where it's just remarkable the run that they're on. I think it's going to get to the point where they're going to realize that unless they change something, it's gone. So there'll still be time to turn it around at that point. So I think more slip-ups potentially.
I take your point as well, talking about them potentially having a different management team or something, because that would worry me more than the current situation, because I think Rangers have got the edge in all fun matches. I think they've got the edge tactically, they've got the edge mentally. I think our players are prepared. I think they need a drastic shake-up, whether it be in style, whether it be in mentality, whether it be going into their matches, because we are dominating them when we play them. And I don't see that changing at Ibrox on current form. So if they were to do that and change their management team, I think that would make me a little bit more nervous, and maybe by proxy the Rangers players a little bit more nervous, considerably different for the current setup, because I think at the minute we've got the beating of them, 11v11.
I don't think they're stupid enough. I don't think MD's stupid enough to want to put their name to that just now. And that's probably quite blunt, but I think nobody wants to be the man that loses the 10. So nobody's, unless you look at like a John Kennedy or Gordon Strachan, you're not getting anybody with any credibility coming up for it. They're randomly talking about Maurizio Pochettino and Eddie Howe as viable candidates for some mental reason. But there's no. I just, given the importance of this season and given where they are just now, nobody's going to be the man who decides to kind of gamble their entire reputation on what looks like being an ultimately unsuccessful season. But we'll leave our friends over at 67 Hill to worry about that a bit more. They've come up with a list of all sorts of candidates that could replace them. Brilliant.
I mean, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'm just happy that we're going well at the minute, and I think that the way that we are going and how we're playing and how efficient we look and how fit we look and just the strength and depth and the taking players in and out of the team and how efficient we are and the harmony that appears to exist between coaching staff and players. I think all of that and them looking into that whilst they're also not playing well, it's just having this monumental effect. And long may it last, do you know what I mean? But I think Rangers just need to focus on Rangers, and whatever happens across there, because it surely can't keep going on like that. Surely.
Oh, it can, and hopefully it will. To the car park. Anything else to add, Jordan?
No, I think I'm happy. I just echo that from Cammy. It literally is just about keeping the head down now and just firing on. I think that's what Gerrard will be saying to the players, because if he knows that the longer things just stay as they are and his team keep excelling, really, and his players are still willing to put in everything for him, the closer he gets to actually cracking this whole thing. And just the way things are going at the minute is so positive from a Rangers point of view. So don't change anything. No one get any injuries.
Fantastic. That's everything for this video. We'll be back with more during the week. Remember to like and subscribe and have a look back through some of our previous videos. Thanks for watching.